Hi everyone, today I will briefly cover 5 mistakes that make business fail. My name is Peter Pakulski. I've been helping people to start their businesses for more than 20 years. I've helped thousands of entrepreneurs at the very earliest stage when all they had was just a business idea. On this channel, I will be sharing my experience, so please welcome. Today, I decided to cover main technical mistakes that prevent the business owner from success and significantly decrease the chances of business survival. By the way, you can also share in the comments the challenges you faced when starting your own business. Everyone will be very interested in your own experience. So, mistake number 1. Underestimated assessment of the project's actual financing needs. In other words, the funding needed to start the business turned out to be much greater than you had anticipated. What is the essence of this problem? Funding you need consists of two parts. First part, investment stage expenses. For example, equipment costs, construction expenses. These costs usually occur before the project starts generating the revenues and can be calculated relatively easily. Second part is more tricky and complex. Before the project reaches the break-even point, its expenses will exceed its revenues. This will result in a period of operating loss, which may last from several months to half a year, or even a full year, depending on the business. This operating loss needs to be also calculated properly and added to the expenses before revenue begins in order to determine the total funding required for the project. Mistake number 2. Overestimation of revenues. At the moment of launching the business, it turned out that the revenue was significantly lower than the entrepreneur has envisioned. This is a very common situation. When we build financial model with the entrepreneur and they start using it, it almost always becomes clear that according to their own assumptions, their revenue is much lower than expected. Thankfully, the entrepreneur finds this out during the business planning and financial modeling stage, rather than after the business has already opened and is operating. In this situation, the entrepreneur usually takes a time out to rethink the business concept and repause the process. Now imagine all of this happening in reality, with real expenses and real liabilities, without possibility to rewind and start over. Mistake number 3. Revenues averaging. Revenue averaging is one of the most serious problems in business projects of novice entrepreneurs. Try to detail your revenue as accurately as possible. Do not use an average pricing or an average customer. You likely have different types of customers for your product or service. Different customers consume your product in different ways. They have different purchase checks. They may also have different consumption frequency. Moreover, different types of customers may have different durations of consuming your product. Some may buy your product only once and then disappear, while others may purchase for 1 month and then disappear, some for 6 months, some for a year, and so on. The seasonality factor also plays an important role here. Seasonality of the revenue from different types of customers can occur within a typical week or within a typical year. For example, one type of customer may buy your product mainly on weekends, while another type may consume it from Monday to Friday. Or some types of customers may buy your product more in winter, while others more in summer. Mistake number 4. Using too large calculation interval. This is a very common mistake made by novice entrepreneurs when calculating the payback period for their project. They calculate the revenue and expenses on a yearly basis, adding some growth coefficient. To avoid obtaining an inaccurate payback period, it's better to set the business planning calculation interval to 1 month. This is especially true for the first year, when the business is just starting, and a lot can happen during the first month of operations. In particular, a significant amount of operating loss may occur, which the entrepreneur will need to finance. If calculations are done with intervals of a year, 6 months, or even a quarter, the entrepreneur may not even see these losses and will end up with inaccurately underestimated financing needed for the project. Be careful with that. Mistake number 5. Misunderstanding project expenses. This is another very common mistake made by novice entrepreneurs. The essence of this problem is that direct costs are mistakenly identified as fixed costs. As a result, as project revenue grows, its expenses increase incorrectly. They become underestimated. The payback period appears shorter while the actual level of expenses is much higher and the real profitability of the project may be much lower with a longer payback period. How to solve this problem? Take a close look at your business idea. Write down 2 columns with expense categories. The first column should list costs that do not increase or decrease with changes in revenue. These expenses are called fixed costs. In the second column, list the expenses that increase when revenue grows and decrease when revenue falls. These are called variable costs. It's extremely important for a beginner entrepreneur to link direct costs to the correct parameters. For example, they may depend on the number of factory shifts, the number of equipment operating hours, the number of customers at any given time, the amount spent on advertising, the number of products the company produces, the number of sales managers, and so on. In short, the entrepreneur needs to sit down and carefully create these 2 expense lists, accurately identifying fixed costs and correctly link direct costs to the relevant project parameters that affect revenue-generating algorithm. This is very important. Be careful with this. Ignoring this process will lead to overstated profitability and incorrect payback period calculations for your business idea. To avoid these and other mistakes, it makes sense for an entrepreneur to prepare a detailed financial model before starting a business. This will make it possible to assess project risks and evaluate the resilience of the business idea in the face of potential revenue declines and cost increases. A financial model also helps the entrepreneur to see their project from a new perspective. Here, they essentially structure revenue for the first time, categorize the expenses, and see the cash flow in details. Within the financial model, the entrepreneur has a rare opportunity to experiment with different scenarios. And most importantly, if the financial performance doesn't look promising, there is an opportunity to postpone the project launch and rethink the business concept. That perhaps is the most important benefit. These are the common mistakes. Try to avoid them. Please write in the comments what mistakes you encountered during your business launch. If you find this material helpful, please like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this video with anyone who is currently launching their business. This information might really help them and save them from mistakes. Take care and see you in next videos.